The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to Garden Connections. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. We're going to start today's show in Rochester, Minnesota with the Pike family. They've recently redone their yard and they've done all the work themselves. We're going to find out how they did it. We're also going to, of course, be seeing Chef Stephen Larson, and he's going to give us another great recipe on what to do with our garden produce. And we'll be back in our community garden with Jen. We're going to see what she's been able to harvest this summer. I hope you'll stay with us for Garden Connections. We're here in the backyard of Collin and Marsha Pike in Rochester, Minnesota, and they have completely redone their yard, and we're going to see how it's turned out. They are one of the featured homes on the Rochester Garden Tour this year. Marsha, thanks so much for showing us around.
Hi, you're welcome.
This is completely different. You showed me the pictures of what it was like before, but go ahead and describe what was here before you made this change.
Well, there were a lot of permanent structures that we didn't particularly care for. There was a bed here in the middle, a raised bed here, back in the corner where now there's a play set, and a lot of old shabby trees that we pulled out. That we pulled out, and a pond that was in disrepair. So we pulled a lot of those structures out and just started over.
A softer scape.
Yes.
This looks great. So where did you get your inspiration from?
Actually, my husband's mom and aunt were wintering in Florida with their husbands, and they drew up our blueprint per se.
Is that right?
So they came home with that one winter and
said, hey, why don't you do that?
We have some ideas for you.
It sounds like you had quite a bit of help putting this in, because you did this whole project yourself.
We did. Family and a couple of friends have helped us out, and our kids.
And your kids. You put your kids to work.
Yes,
how many kids do you guys have?
We have 4.
4. Excellent. And so describe the process a little bit. The first thing is you kind of pulled everything out. Then what?
Then we started with the Roundup to kill off the grass for the garden beds, to lay out where we wanted the beds to be, and started digging holes for plants. Most of the plants, I'd say 80 to 90% of the plants, are things we already had that were on the property, or things we got from family,
nice.
or started from seed.
Yep.
So a lot of reused and shared items.
And some beautiful kind of unusual things and common things. You've got phlox here, and what's your tree, or your, is this a tree or a shrub?
It's a tree.
Okay.
It was here on the property. It's called a PG hydrangea. It's a very interesting looking tree. It's one of my favorites for sure.
Great.
So,
and I see you've got some lamb's ear here. This is great, especially for kids.
Yeah.
My daughter loves
Soft.
to feel these leaves. They're just
Very
so
soft.
fuzzy soft. When she was really little, she used to put them up by her face like a blanket. And they're easy to grow?
yes. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, they started out about this big when we put them here last
And how
year.
many plants? Is this just one plant in this?
This is
group?
one plant, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that really has grown. That looks great. And you chose to put a mulch in the space as well.
Yep. Yep.
Helps with weed control and
moisture.
And moisture.
Keeping the moisture.
Great. Well, let's take a look at some of the other things that you've got in here. And I see you also have some really decorative things. Those are really fun. Tell us about those.
Well, actually, a lot of the garden art in here is stuff that was made by my husband's aunt. She's
nice. You have a very talented family.
Yes, we do.
Hey, let's step in here and you see that red one. What is that? That is really interesting.
That's a castor bean that was started from seed.
It's a castor bean. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I don't think I've ever seen one
So
of those.
they'll get taller than you.
And what an
summer
amazing red flower to
Last
that.
summer they got really tall.
That's great. Looks pretty. What's that kind of yellow-green one? In
That
the
is
back
also one of my favorites. That's a tiger eye sumac. And eventually it'll get much bigger and it'll create a good contrast against that Russian sage.
Those are great colors, the contrast. And again, nice, you've got chimes and bird feeders and other things that the kids...
Things made by my kids.
Terrific. You've even got some grasses in here. That adds a different architectural interest in your space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, more artwork.
More
now
art.
this section of the garden is devoted to the kids.
Yes. Yep, this is their space. This is the space that they're supposed to play on. Of course, they go elsewhere, play hide and seek, but...
And who could blame them?
I know.
And I bet a lot of these plants are really pretty hardy.
Yeah.
Can hold up to a little wear and tear.
Yeah, they have actually. So they've been moved around a lot and they've lasted. So.
Well, and with 4 kids around, you kind of need plants that will do that. Looks great. And so a designated player area, and then over here you've got some more space to enjoy outdoors. I love this beautiful pink flower. What's this one?
This is a hibiscus. And this is a plant that did not want to die during all of our destruction.
It says, no, don't let me go. So this was here on the property before?
It was. We actually found it beneath the rubble of the pond that we removed. So,
really?
and then moved it to this spot.
Wow. And it seems to love it. Look at all these buds and these flowers. My gosh,
very
they are
fun.
just gorgeous. Those deep pink throats to them. Beautiful. Well, it certainly is happy here.
Yes.
You've done a lot of work on the front yard. Let's go take a look at
All right.
Now the front yard, you again ripped out some old shrubs and put in beautiful flowering plants. And this is a different shrub, right? This is new to the front yard?
Yes.
What's this one called?
This is a 9-bark.
A 9-bark. I love how on one side of the leaf, it's almost a dark olive, and on the flip side, it's a light.
And we planted it here actually to contrast the color of the house that we had planned to paint. So
good thinking, good thinking. And you completely did the front walk as well.
Yes.
That looks great. There's a story behind this one.
There is an interesting story with the pavers here for the walkway. They actually came from the patio in the backyard. We took them off the top of the patio, made the walkway, and then did some things to the patio to refreshen that as well.
Yep. Looks great. Very natural looking, and you've even got a paver that looks like the state of Minnesota.
We do.
Very clever, very clever. And you guys spend some time outside here in the morning?
Yep, with the paper, coffee.
Sounds good. Watch the neighbors go by.
Yes. Watch the kids play.
That's right, that's right. I saw some kids bicycling in the street earlier. Terrific. Well, and that's nice to have. When you redo your garden, you like to be able to spend time in it. That's terrific. Let's look at some other public spaces that you use as a family for entertaining outdoors.
All right.
So this space was also completely redone.
Yes.
New deck, new
patio.
Looks great. And I can see you spend a lot of time out here.
We do. We like to eat out here. We like to sit and watch the kids play in the backyard and things like that. Have fires. We host some extended family for Friday family-friendly happy hours. So we have a lot of space, a lot of seating space, a lot of...
Just love to be out here.
Yeah, we do.
Great. And I understand, Collin, you did a ton of the work here.
I did a lot of the muscle work, yes.
You did. It looks good. Always helps to have somebody to say, put it over here, put it over there, and then somebody with the muscle to do it.
Yes.
Right.
Great. What do you love most about your new outdoor space?
I love the patio. I just love it. I love being out here. I love how it turned out.
It looks great.
Yeah,
Wow, you
very
guys
happy with it.
certainly look like you utilized this space well. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned for more Garden Connections.
Hi, I'm Chef Stephen Larson. Welcome to my kitchen at Quarter Quarter Restaurant in Harmony, Minnesota. Today we're talking about the versatility of green beans. I have some French filet style beans here that we're going to use in the next recipe for Szechuan stir-fried green beans. I have 1.5 pounds in the bowl ready to go here that have already been blanched. And to that we're going to add a pork mixture and then a sauce. So the next thing that we need to do is start our pork mixture. For that, I have 1 pound of ground pork that we're going to put in the Cuisinart. We're going to add a couple of teaspoons of fresh ginger, a couple of teaspoons of soy sauce, and a couple of teaspoons of dark sesame oil. So we're just going to let that buzz around real quick. till it's mixed. You don't want to overmix it, but we do want to make sure that it is well mixed. Okay, and that's really all it takes. We'll remove that to a separate bowl. Then it'll be ready for cooking. Next thing we're going to do is get our sauce ready. Now that's a combination of chicken stock, or you could just use water, a couple of tablespoons of soy sauce, some hot pepper sauce to give it that Szechuan kick, and a couple of teaspoons of cornstarch to thicken it. But we do need to mix that up because cornstarch will always settle to the bottom of a sauce like this. And then we'll make sure and mix it up again right before we use it. Okay, so I have a wok pan over high heat because we are stir frying. We want high heat. We also want a very light vegetable oil like peanut oil. We're going to add just a tablespoon or so to that, and we're going to stir fry our beans. We want that really hot so you really hear that sizzle when it hits the pan. And you can see how quickly that already starts to char those. That's what we're looking for. As the Chinese call it, the breath of the wok. Okay, so that just takes a minute for those to get hot. I'm going to save that bowl because we're going to put the beans back in there when they're done cooking. Then we're going to have to add the pork to the pan and cook that as well. And for that, we've got that other reserved little bit of vegetable oil or peanut oil. Canola oil works. Grapeseed oil works. That's one of my favorite oils because it's a very high heat oil. All right. And that is good for those. Now we're going to add the rest of that oil. And you notice how I swirl the pan to get it coated with the oil first. That helps to keep it from sticking. And we'll add our seasoned pork mixture. And for that, we'll switch to a spoon. And we'll let this cook for about 4 minutes until there's no pink left. So now that the pork is cooked and crumbled, we can add everything back together. So in go our stir-fried green beans, followed by our sauce, which we'll give another quick whisk. And all we need to do is bring that to the boil and it's ready to go. Once the sauce is boiled and thickened, we're ready to go to the plate. Now this makes a delicious entree as well as just a nice side dish. And to finish it off, a sprinkling of roasted peanuts. And that's the dish, Szechuan stir-fried green beans, because the versatility of green beans is a great thing to have in the garden.
Well, we're back in our community garden, and we're here for the final visit of the season, and we're going to check it out. Paul Trischka was kind enough to come and do some diagnosis for us, and if you recall, we learned that there really was a lot of leftover matter from when they tilled the bed in the spring, and from some of the wood chips that we spread, and some of the leaves that may not have decomposed enough before we put them down for mulch. So while the garden hasn't performed as well as we'd like, we're here to see what we did produce. So let's take a look at some of the things that we've had. We've got beets here, which I love beets, but these guys are still trying, just not really coming.
They're struggling. This is a tough corner. Also, we planted some rainbow chard here, and it's also struggling. I don't know if it's just too compacted, like the soil's just too tight.
Yeah, yep, that could be.
Seems like that's a possibility.
Yep. So hopefully we'll have a warm fall, and we'll still see some growth with these yet. We've also noticed that they have come and mowed around all the plats, but you can see by the weeds here that are on the outside border of the garden that it got really tall. So there is some shade to kind of this side as well. That probably didn't help.
Right.
These are the tomatoes, which greenery looks good, but we haven't seen a ton of tomatoes. I know when we uncovered them, we saw a few in there.
Right.
And I see there is one guy in here that looks like, I'm going to just pick him.
Good.
So
that'll
he's orange, but he will eventually turn red. And I see we've got, this is the larger size one, and then we've got just a couple over there that are starting to turn orange and red too, of the smaller cherry variety. So these are okay. I see there was some lettuce in the middle. Did we get a lot of lettuce to eat?
We did, but it got so hot so quick. My first harvest, I did get 2 cuttings off of it. The first cut was fantastic. Second cut was super bitter.
Super bitter. I've had that trouble in my own garden at home.
Yeah.
It's been really tough to keep it
sweet. And with the tomatoes
sweet
as well, I've been talking to some of the growers at the local farmers market here in Austin, and they were saying, except for the hothouse folks, that they're really struggling with tomatoes this year too.
All right.
I think it might just be the region and
the
interesting growing season this year.
Yep. Your kale looks beautiful though. Let's take a look at that.
So much kale. It's been great.
This does look good. Curly, tight, fresh looking. How long can you keep kale in the fridge?
A long time.
A long time. At least a week?
Oh, at least a week.
At least a week. Yep. And what do you do with it?
I put it in smoothies all the time. We have a juicer. We also juice, and you would juice the whole thing.
Okay.
It's really good sautéed. Just a quick sauté. Any sort of stir fry, sauces.
Very versatile.
I sneak it into everything.
Into everything. Okay. And here is our broccoli, which also is looking pretty good. Now, some of this has already gone and is flowering.
Yes.
And while I go ahead and pick that, and to be honest, in our house, we eat it anyway.
Yeah, it's edible for sure.
So, and you can trim it way down on the stalk. And I've also seen recipes, though I haven't tried it, but I understand you eat a lot of the stalk. I've seen slaws that you can use the stalk for.
Yep. And you can steam them, and they soften up like an asparagus. And they do get nice and soft and edible. If they're thicker, not so good.
Right.
It gets a little woody after a while. But these are not the main
tender.
These aren't the main head. The main head.
You've taken those already.
Yes, those I took right initially, and then the plants keep producing, which is so fun about broccoli.
Yep, looks good.
And I think once they produce, later into the season when it's a little colder, that's going to be really nice.
Yeah, really good. Okay, and we've got the cauliflower right next.
Yes.
And that's leaf-wise, the greenery looks good, but we don't have any heads developing yet, right?
No heads yet. Yep, and we've got more plants here, and I'm really excited about those.
So hopefully, and one of the great things about cauliflower sometimes too is some of my best cauliflower I harvested just before Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
You've been through a few frosts and the bugs were gone, and so you don't see these holes in the leaves anymore.
Right.
And your heads develop beautifully. Nice and white, no sign of insect pressure.
Awesome.
So we'll cross our fingers for that.
Good. I've also been told kale is also very good after that first frost.
Yep. I would agree.
And then what else is good after the first frost?
Even carrots, and we've got some in the garden here too that are a little slow coming along.
Right.
Even carrots will sweeten after that first frost, and as long as they're well covered, you shouldn't have any issues. So these herbs look good, and here is your sage. I love the smell of that.
Ooh, that's nice.
Love the smell of that. And you can put that straight on. We do a lot of roasting of whole birds, whole chickens at our house, and you can just either crumple it up a little bit and sprinkle it over the top, or do a quick chop to it, or you can just stuff that whole sprig inside the cavity of the bird too.
Oh, wow.
I tend to be a convenience cook, so I don't do always a lot of preps for that.
Right.
But you can also dry it too.
Okay, and how would I do that? How would I do dry?
Most of the time, you wouldn't want to bunch too many of those together, but just wrap either a piece of twine or a string or a rubber band, hang it upside down, cool, dry place, and wait for it to dry.
Nice. And then I could just store them
in a plastic bag? Yeah.
Plastic bag?
Glass container, yep. Sometimes I save my old spice, those little plastic spice things. I save those and throw them in there.
Oh, nice.
That works too.
Okay.
But you've also got some good looking oregano.
Now, does the oregano come back every year?
This smells good. It should, yep.
Oh, that's nice.
And I'm going to snip this one because you can see this one has gone, it's flowering, and if we left it, it would go to seed.
Yeah, that's lovely. But you can't really use this for cooking.
Nope, you want to use what you've got in your hand
leaves.
there. You'd use the leaves. And again, just a rough chop. Put it in any kind of Italian dish. It smells really good.
Yeah, these are awesome.
Even the flowers do too.
Okay.
So, and you see the celery.
Oh yeah, the celery
is turning more yellow. You know, when Paul Trichka was here, he said really that was a possible source not only to deplete the nitrogen, is that if that beautiful leaf mulch that we had, that was so well composted, he said oak leaves have something in them that often negatively impact plants.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And the yard that my friend has does happen to have a lot of oak trees. So that may be another contributing factor to why the celery did not prosper and turned that yellow color. So here's a couple of eggplants that we put in a little bit late in the season, but they were nice looking transplants, so they were pretty good size. And we can see, eggplants are so pretty.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Look at how striped that is. That looks good. So it's coming. That eggplant loves warm, hot weather, so let's hope we get a few more warm days.
Yeah, definitely.
I understand you cook a lot with eggplant.
Yes.
What do you make?
Mostly a dip called bab ganoush.
Okay.
I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a little bit like hummus. You eat it on crackers or vegetables. And it's very, very good.
Sounds good. Do you keep the skin? Do you get the purple color?
You can. It just depends on how well it roasts up and whether you like the skin in there. Normally I do scrape it out. So I leave the skin
so you get just the flesh.
Right.
All right. So it looks beautiful in the fridge or maybe on a countertop, but
absolutely.
And delicious inside.
Yes.
Great. Now over here we have our peppers.
I was a little worried about the peppers.
They looked kind of tough, and they still don't look exactly strong.
No,
but
they don't.
Guess what?
Yeah,
we do have some
plenty
peppers.
Of hot peppers for me this year. That's for sure.
Sounds good. And you've got a bell over there.
I've got a bell. I think it's ready to go. And that's nice.
And that's not the first one you've taken, right?
It's not the first one. Who's the gentleman that came in that
Paul
talked?
Trichka.
Yeah, he said the pepper plants were.
The roots hadn't developed.
Right.
Yep. He dug actually the one that's not there anymore. He dug that one out, and you could see it looked just like it had when we put it in.
Oh.
Hardly any root development at all. So, considering that.
Yeah, I'm happy with it.
We're doing okay.
Plenty of hot peppers for the year and the salsa that I'm making, and that's it.
All right. Sounds good. Let's go look at carrots.
Oh, great.
And these are our carrots, and we put in dragon carrots, right?
Yes, we did.
Yep. So let's see if we can find one. Again, just taking longer than we thought.
Yeah, they're taking their time, but that's okay.
Let's see if we can get one out.
Oh.
And he's short, but look
Very short.
Very pretty purple color. Yeah. And that's what a dragon carrot is. And it's going to be orange on the inside.
Right.
If I remember right. Let's see if I can, let's get out my nippers here. We'll cut that one open. Oh, so almost even yellow on the inside.
Yellow in the core. Normally, it's once they're more developed, the core is yellow, and then the main
orange on the perimeter.
That's right.
All right. So these have a little bit of time left,
yes,
but
they do.
Certainly could snack on some of those smaller ones. So, but the greenery looks good, better than some of our other greens.
But as I don't know if you can tell this, but something is still eating the carrot tops.
Pests are our challenge this year, aren't they?
Yes.
And beans faced the same thing. We had some germination issue with some of the older ones, and some of the beans got nipped, but I see you have found some success with what's growing.
Yes.
You've got some green beans in here.
Yes, beautiful green beans. Yeah, so we'll be able to eat at least one meal of green beans.
And I see you've got a friend right here on a green bean leaf.
Aha!
Now this actually comes from another plant that we have in our garden, which we're going to take a look at next. Kind of an ugly little friend, isn't he? Let's go take a look at our potatoes.
Great.
Well, let's take a look at our little potato tower here. I'm really anxious to see what the results have been. I've been seeing a lot of potatoes at farmers market, so let's hope that this has produced well.
All right. I think we need to pull these,
Well, here's one.
Here's two.
All right. So
Okay.
I'm going to tip this actually the other way. Look at these great potatoes underneath.
Oh, that's great.
Great.
Look at that. Good eating.
And
There.
these were a fingerling variety.
Right. Ooh,
So
but look at, I barely touched it and the skin came off. Do you see that?
Yep. They have a very tender skin in it, and
Right.
you don't need to peel them at all before you cook them. This is actually much larger than they normally get.
Right.
So that one's especially large, but you can see we've got some nice size ones.
Oh, they look beautiful. I can't wait.
Brush them up. You can roast them, you can boil them. I wouldn't bother mashing them though. It
Oh,
seems
heck
like
no.
a waste of a good thin-skinned fresh potato.
Beautiful.
Looks great. And so we've got some down in the dirt here.
Oh, look at those.
Looks good.
Gorgeous.
And then, I bet,
We can just dump this
we
out.
shake this guy.
There you go.
And so it's all throughout.
Ooh, look at this big one.
Wow. Very interesting and very easy to harvest. No potato forks taking in the ground. I think I'm gonna like this method.
Yes. And you can grow a lot of potatoes in a very small area.
In a small space because you can go up.
Right.
Great. Well, I'm glad you've joined us here as we've taken a look at what's been available in our garden. We have maybe not had all the success we hoped for this season, but it looks like we've had some good things happen and
Absolutely.
we've learned a lot. Jen, thank you so much for taking care of the garden this summer.
Thanks for asking me to do so.
All right. Thanks for joining us this week. I hope to see you again next week on Garden Connections.
On Garden Connections, we'd love to see photos of your garden. Or if you have questions for our garden experts, contact us by emailing garden@ksmq.org or like us on Facebook.